needless to say, like there's a lot of things that go into owning a business, from starting the business, the vision behind the business, the logo, the marketing, the financial stress, the hiring and recruiting, people quitting. You're getting burnt out, but you're the only one that can't quit. There's been times where I wouldn't say I was burnt out, but I think I was tired mentally, not even physically. Physically, I can inspect hundreds of roofs, but when it comes to the mental side of things is what people don't see. They see the outside success and the outside perspective, but they never see the inside, what happens in your mind.
Right.
And that's where my personal opinion, it's where my faith has always kept me strong, because like you said, you're saying these prayers and you're like, God, please help me in times of need. But what about the times that you're winning?
Hello, everybody. Jon Grogan with the Rewind Podcast. Here with me, I have
Edgar
Ramirez. Ed Ram.
The
Ed Ram. Today, if you guys know, if you saw the clip before this, we're getting into a little bit a different topic, different than what we've normally done. Today, we're discussing just us, the effects that faith has had in the work environment, and then if you are a business owner, what that looks like, or solving questions, basically, if you are thinking that it should be involved or if you haven't involved it, and things like that. And we're going to touch on some Bible verses and things like that, because both of us, our faith is very, very important to us.
Very.
And
it's just something that we've both kind of had in our hearts. But I guess we'll start off, John, if you want to read that, and then we're going to dive right through it.
Yeah, so get this pulled up. When things do not go the way we plan in our business, it sometimes is hard to distinguish between a Christian and a business and non-Christian. It is hard to distinguish in a business a Christian and a non-Christian. We may not have our faith in common. However, we are all human. Our flesh and our humanity win out in times of stress, and we do not consciously stay focused on God. There are too many things that can happen in business that we do not want to happen. I couldn't possibly list them all. To focus on this post, here we have a couple. You have lost several customers or sales and are down in general and aren't sure why. Your gross margins on jobs are down significantly due to high labor and missing deadlines. You have been losing team members and don't know if it is money, culture, or competition. These examples seem like a trend to you. They have happened more than once, and you know that a continued trajectory in this direction will really start to de-escalate the health of your business. This is where our humanity comes in. Whether you are the type of person that worries, gets depressed, or outright practices internal or panics. Internal pressure feels like a voice or a vice on your chest. Most of us do try to give it to God in the very beginning. We set up the fast and furious, please God help, in our prayers. This seems to be simultaneously to Satan whispering his well-known lies. So basically, in the beginning of that, it's just stating what I think most business owners go through in the times when things aren't going their way. If we're all being honest, we all want things to go our way all the time and never deviate from the path. And so
I think,
go ahead.
Yeah, one of the biggest things that I've noticed, and I don't know if you have, is a lot of people in every industry, for some reason, they tend to want to shy away from their faith within their organization. They have their own reasons why. I never really understood, in my perspective, like why they do that. Former employers, they would always either preach God behind closed doors, but never let it shine outside the closed doors. It's like you're enclosed and you're not sharing the good news of how things, how you're blessed or how things are working out in your favor. And sometimes, for us, great example is like, we believe that in our personal opinion, now, if you don't believe or if you're entertaining, you don't have to follow what we do, but this is what worked for us. Yeah. And that's what I believe we're called to do. Yeah. I don't know. It's tough. That's why we kind of wanted to bring this topic up, because I think there's so many people that are confused whether or not they should implement or even mention that they're Christian, because they might lose a sale or because they might not have the right intentions. It all comes down, in my opinion, to character. And if you're out there saying you're a Christian, but behind closed doors you're doing things that you shouldn't be doing, then that's why you're shying away from wanting to share your faith. Yeah. That's my opinion.
Which at the end of the day, I mean, we all do things that maybe it's like, man, like that really doesn't align with my faith. I mean, we're not perfect. But like you said, I mean, thinking about this, more when we decided about the topic, I'm like you, where I'm like, I mean, my faith is my, it's our foundation as far as like everything that we've been built off. Like God has helped me through absolutely every portion and every aspect of my life, and even to the creation of our business right now, to where it's like, to me, I can't do anything, but give him the glory. But I feel like it is different for other people, and it is a piece that I don't really understand as far as like, I mean, I can understand it in the sense that like a lot of people like to section out, portions of their life. They have, their family time, they have their faith time, which is more of an independent thing. They have their work and their business time, and they don't like to mingle them. And this is, I think, where like the and I think it's just a misunderstanding of like how God wants to operate in our lives, and that like he's like the operating force behind all of it. And I think that that's what the Bible verses that we'll go over will really like get into. Where it's like, I mean, in all honesty, like if you don't have your faith intertwined in your business, like you are missing out on a whole armory and weaponry on how to like fight these like tough times in life.
And I mean, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, whatever it is, if you're inventing something, if you've started a business, I think a lot of people, there's a list that I like took a screenshot of things that every business owner literally goes through. And I'm gonna actually read it, and that way it kind of connects to when we get into the scripture. And it's just crazy to know that like this is what every entrepreneur out there goes through, and like what they have to face every day, the questions or the challenges that are gonna come no matter what. And I hope I took a screenshot. Okay, well, never mind. We'll go back to that.
I think I have the screen. Is it what you're thinking
I think
of?
It was a different one. But anyways,
never mind.
Needless to say, like there's a lot of things that go into owning a business, from starting the business, the vision behind the business, the logo, the marketing, the financial stress, the hiring and recruiting, the people quitting, and people like getting burnt out. You're getting burnt out, but you're the only one that can't quit, because it's like you're the one that decided to start this endeavor, and you are the only one that will hold it. So as a human, like how much, in our perspective and from our experience, like there's been times where I wouldn't say I was burnt out, but I think I was tired mentally, not even physically. Physically, I can inspect hundreds of roofs, a month. I don't care. Yeah. But when it comes to the mental side of things, is what people don't see. They see the outside success and the outside perspective, but they never see the inside, what happens in your mind.
Right.
And that's where my personal opinion, it's where my faith has always kept me strong, because, like you said, you're saying these prayers and you're like, God, please help me in times of need. But what about the times that you're winning?
Yeah.
Like, you forget.
How often do you go to
How
him?
often do you think? How often do you remember?
Yeah. So, well, and as business owners, like that is by far like I remember when we were working for other people, like it was super easy to focus on God, because it's like there's just all of the other, like, you go to work and then, you get home and, you got a ton of time, and, people can choose to do whatever they want with their time. But you have more in a way, you have more brain space, because you don't have all of like, the problems where it's like, if an employee goes home, he gets to just kind of check out, and like, and if you have family and all that, you have those problems as well. But as a business owner, like you take all of that with you wherever you go. Yeah. So it is hard to like keep him at the forefront of your mind, and that like he's in the midst of all of it, because like that was saying, like all of the lies from the devil, like just a list of problems just comes. And actually, I don't think we got to that. Maybe we'll read that in it. But what it goes on to say is it just lists out like the lies of the devil, and that the things that he starts to, like when these problems start to happen, rather than, we have that quick, please God help. And then the enemy's lies kick in. It's like, well, what if this starts to happen? You're not good enough. You you made the wrong decision. You're not really living for God. You're not doing any of these things, which, get in your head in times of stress.
Yeah.
Really, really, yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. I saw this podcast, and it was the comment that someone made is every time you make a prayer, remember that there's always two people listening to your phone call with God. Essentially, what you're doing is, even though you're praying to God and you're asking him for strength and you're asking him for, peace, maybe of peace of mind, financial, help me financially, like, God, like, I can't do this. Know that there's another side to that phone call. Someone's listening into that phone call because they're hearing your weaknesses. Yeah. So then, in my opinion, he essentially, the enemy, will try to attack you more in the areas that you're struggling with.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. Yeah.
And when I heard that, I was like, dang, like, that's so true. And it was actually George Janko and Andrew Tate that did that podcast. And George Janko mentioned that to Andrew Tate. And if you know Andrew Tate, he's a very articulate man. And he was even impressed by the comment of, like, because he was talking about the prayer and, like, how you as a Christian should pray, but then, what if God doesn't, do this and that? And that's where he jumped in and said, well, there's two people listening in on the phone call. So not all the time, you're not always going to get your prayer answered because someone else, not saying that God isn't going to intervene or anything, or he's not going to make it happen, but we got to remember it's in God's timing. But essentially, I don't know.
Well, it kind of makes sense. I mean, especially like from you wonder why, especially like if you are a man of faith or a person of faith, that when you go to God and you start praying about these things, like it almost like at sometimes like gets worse. Like the problem will get like escalate more and stuff. It's not like, you pray to God and immediately, problem solved or anything like that. It seems like, so that it would make sense. Like if that's, if that's the case, it definitely, if you are a person of faith, it would only make sense that Satan would want to try and hinder you more than somebody who doesn't believe at all.
Yeah. And think about it. If you're in business, know that I read it also an article before doing this podcast, and it was Harvard University that did an article about it. But if you look at all the entrepreneurship that happens, 9 out of 10 people that are an entrepreneur, 9 people are praying because they are mentally more into the faith because they are outside of the norm. They're willing to do something other people aren't. Meaning you have to source out strength and, the ability to think outside of your own mind, because sometimes it gets very tough. Like everybody we've had on this podcast, everybody somehow always, no matter what, like will pray, or will, even if they don't say it out loud, maybe like we don't know what happens inside their head, but if you're unconsciously thinking like, man, I can't do this alone, you're basically asking a way to say the prayer. Like, I don't know how to do something. I don't know how to approach this situation. Like, you're seeking wisdom with your own mind. But imagine if you shifted that to someone greater who knows exactly what can happen and how to make things work in your favor. Yeah. So, and then there's, I'll actually read this. Actually, I do have that one. But this is Proverbs 16, verse 3 is, commit your work to the Lord, and your plans will be established. The Lord has made everything for its purpose, even the wicked for the day of trouble.
Mm-hmm. I think that brings up an interesting point. I talk to my brothers about this a lot, but in Christianity specifically, a lot of religions, there's the whole idea of let go and let God, and the whole like he'll like direct and push your path which he absolutely will. But I think a lot of Christians like mistake that for don't do anything, like wait for things to happen. And this is like totally the mindset that I used to be in, especially before me and you got into business together, because you're the exact opposite. You're like, let's make action, let's make things happen. And that, I think what that verse speaks to me at least is it's like, establish, make your plans basically, and the Lord will establish them. So it's like God does give us a level of free will. He does give us free will to like go out there, put in action in things like that. But at the end of the day, he's the one that establishes what will actually work and what won't work. Yeah. And so I just think, that one speaks to me a lot. I think that if a lot of people took that into practice, rather than a lot of Christians took that into practice with their lives, there'd be much more fruit in it.
So I guess being the devil's advocate, going off of what you're saying, let's say I wasn't a Christian and I didn't believe, and I would let's say I wasn't even curious. I was just an atheist.
Yeah.
Like, how do I know that what you're saying would be true? Because like what you're facing in this world is of this world. Like, there's spirituality, there's all these different things, but like, you know, how do I approach it in that aspect of like,
of course.
You know,
well, I mean, I think it's the same thing, and in fact, I think atheists do it a lot better sometimes than Christians. I think Christians have less of at least modern day, they have less of not an ability, but like, you know, that drive to like move forward and like go out and conquer, and, you know, for lack of better terms, where the atheist, like, he's just gung ho, nobody's gonna make it happen but me. But at the end of the day, even the atheist can understand that whatever, like, no, he can work as hard as he wants towards something, and it just may not happen. Like, it's just not going to happen. And I think that at the end, for me, I mean, that is God. Like, you know, you can push your hardest at a certain wall, and it just may not budge.
So do you think that an atheist, because he's atheist and he's pushing towards that goal, I mean, we can look at different stories. Some, you know, atheists, whatever religion it must be, they're moving forward, they're being successful. But then it seems like a Christian's life would be more complicated because of faith. Like, that just doesn't, in my perspective, I'm trying to like see both sides, because I know I'm a Christian and I know that side. But how would you describe it on your perspective? Like, an atheist will push mentally and physically as hard as they can towards that one goal and not quit. But then there's a Christian who may struggle with all these different emotions. And maybe not hit their goal.
I think that at the end of the day, it goes towards what you're aiming for. Like, what are you building for? Because if the atheists are correct, and Ecclesiastes talks about this a lot. Like, it talks a lot about work. It opened my eyes towards, you know, work, and how, like, you know, like Solomon, he talked a ton about how everything is meaningless. You know, you can spend your entire life being wise and righteous and all of that, and still have somebody who's incredibly wicked spring up before you and go further, faster, like harder than you, and eventually triumph over you. And at the end of the day, whether you're wise and righteous or wicked and foolish, we all end up in the ground, and our stuff is going to be given to somebody else. And that's where, to me, like, that sounds, if I was an atheist, like, that sounds absolutely hopeless and meaningless. And it explains to me why people commit suicide and many other things like that, is because then, like, what is it all for? Like, where is this all going? What am I moving towards? I mean, human beings are forward moving creatures. And so if it's just cut off at the roots, like, I mean, sure, you could take things like, you know, the betterment of, you know, humanity, which is something that we all should take it into account, and that goes into a whole nother format of ethicalness and stuff. But I think that would be the differentiating factor, and it gives the Christian more incentive to push through, and it actually shows strength. It shows strength in God, strength in character, and all those things, that even despite all of the hardship that is coming against you, you don't give up. No, there's an end goal. So anyway,
I agree. And you're mentioning scripture, and we even talked about it yesterday before we did the podcast. And I told you I was reading the book of Daniel, and you know, it's the same thing. It seems like it's a trend. Every person that begins something, whether it's with God or God gives you the privilege to be successful, even if you're an atheist or whatever, you have a choice to make, whether it's to build and learn of him, so he keeps blessing that thing. But even in the story of Nebuchadnezzar, the king, in that book, and we talked about it, he built this empire where people believed that he was same, you know, as the other stories. What book did you mention earlier? Ecclesiastes. Same thing. He built, and he had visions, or he had dreams about his downfall, him and his son, and they both had the same ending. It's like, your kingdom's going to end because you weren't acknowledging me. So, you know, an angel from above came and told him that, and they didn't take it serious. So what happens is everything crumbles, and it goes the same. Like we look at today's day and age.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, it is not about kingdom, and you're the king, and you're overseeing thousands, millions of people. But what about the people that are around you? Like maybe God put you in that position to learn, but also to build something. And so that's, I don't know, that's a whole.
We're opening up a lot of can of worms. This can go in so many different directions. But just to piggyback on that, my Bible itself is it's like a leadership Bible. It was John Maxwell. He leaves cliff notes and everything in there, but it's like written from like a leader's perspective, and he points out all the passages that point to leadership. And the conclusion of all of it is like that's literally what the Bible is, and I think that was God's gift, to make man in His image, is the ability to govern and to lead and to uphold those the standards, His standards on the earth. And so even like you don't have to be a business owner or anybody like that to take that responsibility onto your shoulders. It's like, who do you have around you? And if you don't have anybody around you, well, you got yourself, because you can easily, I mean, people do it all the time. They misgovern themselves. So
do you think that's why you mentioned earlier there's a lot of suicides, but with men specifically, it seems like today and age, not only are men undervalued, but they're also underappreciated, and there's a lack of male, I guess, figures or leadership within the country, within your inner circle, within organizations. Like there is a need of leadership to arise, in my opinion, because we look at everything and how everything is playing out. It's like
not only just leadership, I think, but the right kind of leadership, because there's a ton of people leading people in a lot of bad directions out there. And that's why I stand so firmly on the Bible. And I think you do too, is because apples to apples, I think I don't know what I was listening to this morning. I think it was like another George Janko things, but you look he's a smart guy. But it's like you look at the foundations upon like what the leaders of this country are leading us to today, and it is leading us to like utter tyranny and just mass, population control and all of these different things. But you look at like the founding fathers and their foundation was the Bible and the principles that it was built off of, and it built the greatest nation. As far as we know, to ever exist, and so in that manner, I think that of course we're in lack of leadership, but also the right kind.
No, I agree. Would you think that you've struggled personally, like implementing your faith with, you're a business owner, we own Virtuous Roofing, we started the podcast, we have other business ideas in the future. Like, was it hard for you to implement it, like to implement your faith with what you're doing now, or was it your main source? I will say it was easy to start it with my faith, but continuing in it, like continuing to hold that strength that I had at the beginning, it got tougher as things went along. Yeah. What would you say got tougher?
Well, just, things don't work out like, quite the way, like, the way that you thought. As far as like, I remember when we, first started the company, like, I mean, that was both of our goal was to build it off of, our foundation, in Christ and everything. But a lot of things, change, specifically, like, I mean, we've had a fairly successful business, and like, the temptations, that come along with that, as far as like, the struggles that I've had, to go out and like, PCU wants to go out and like, have a taste of the good life, so to speak, and like to go and to live in the world. So it definitely, I would say it was easy to start out that way, but then to maintain your integrity. And you can see that through like, most of the kings in the Old Testament, like the same thing. So try not to be one of them.
No,
I mean, I could ask you the same thing. I mean, how was it for you? I mean, what's your perspective on that? Like when we first started the business, because I mean, it's just as big of a question for you.
100%. I think for me, the biggest thing I struggled with is expecting too much too soon. Yeah. Like expecting, like knowing. What
was I say? Where did your like faith play a role?
My faith played a big role. Like sure, but I think at the same time I was like 50-50. My pride was a part of it. Not only wanting to prove myself, but wanting to prove everybody that I could do it. because I just believed I could. I didn't know how far it would go, but I essentially, like, I thought, again, I think I just wanted more out of it too soon, and I wasn't allowing the company to grow on its own. I was pushing it to grow faster, whereas opposed to like just letting go and saying, you know, God, like, take the wheel, you run the business, you are the leader, you lead me.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you don't know what you're doing. Sometimes, like I said, there's so many things you have to look into, not only finances, but what kind of leader are you? What is your vision? What is your goal? What are your core values? What the name itself that you picked for the business, it's so hard for me to not want to be a better person because of the name.
Of course.
To the point where at the beginning I was like, do we even deserve, or do we even want this name? Because it's too much burden to carry.
Yeah.
And as a man, one thing that I know is your word is your bond.
Yeah.
So if your word and your intentions don't align with the thing you're trying to represent, then what kind of man are you? Like, you know, you say you're going to do one thing and then you end up doing another thing. When I do that, it hurts me because I'm like, not only am I, you know, with my business partner, not only am I like not aligned with my goals and my vision, but I'm also like my wife and my friends and my family. What kind of men are they seeing?
Yeah.
And that's what kind of rewinded me back to go to the foundation of, you know, this is not the way that I want the company to run. Like, this should be a group effort. This should be a us effort, and whoever is involved within the company. And so it did have a lot to do, and I went away from it. But then again, God has so much grace that he allows me to realize what I'm doing before I destroy it, because he was the one, you know, fully in charge from the beginning.
I agree 100%. And I think that that's what you touched on is a major point. Like, I think that people without a faith would miss out on, because there's always like that call back. Like when you've gotten too far off the track, there's that call back to get back on the track. Yeah. If you didn't have a faith, do you think you would have made it back?
No, no, I think, no, absolutely not. Like, you think about it. No.
Yeah.
Like every aspect of the business, everything from even having hope that things work out with whatever it is. Like, I believe that I would have been so prideful and so egotistic that I would have just tried to do things on my own and just been like, you know, whatever it is, like, I want to fucking figure it out. Like, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you know, in my perspective, is like, you've gone through so much. And if you've gone through so much in your life, like, to the point that nothing can break you, I would hate to be hit rock bottom again. That would be one of my biggest things, is like, I've known what rock bottom is and I don't want to go back. So God has like taught me so much to not, you know, go back to old ways that don't benefit me or my faith or the people around me.
I know for a fact that if I didn't have God, like, I would have been dead in a ditch a long time ago from multiple different things. Yeah. And so it's that, it is like, it's that security that keeps you, you know, because if you don't know what the right path is, and you deviate from wherever you were, it's hard to get back to either who you once were or get back on track. Yeah. Like, you know, because there's no way. So,
And that's another big reason for you guys to know, if you've watched this far along in the podcast, like in this episode, is we're not trying to preach anything to you. We're just trying to explain our point of view of what we've experienced with our faith, and hopefully we can encourage someone to know that, you know, you do need that foundation and that strength that's outside of your own mind. And hopefully, like, I mean, like I said, I hope it reaches someone, but there's just so many questions that I think business owners come. So, like, why do you think people, like, don't implement their faith within their business? Like, why do you think that people run away from it? Because they're scared. I think they're scared of
I think it's a lot
something.
Of what you said. It's, you know, because as soon as you mark your business out as like that representation, you've put a target on the back of your head, in the sense that it's like, well, now you have this standard to uphold, and now you're not even representing just your name, you're representing God's name. And so that's a big thing, like to do. And so I completely understand, like, you know, when people don't do it, because it's, I think it hinders them, but it both helps and hinders, because then you don't have that responsibility on your shoulders and that striving to continue to be better, like you said. And that just like, wow, like this is a big burden to bear. But at the same point, if you didn't have that burden, like, would you drift? Would you then not hold yourself to those standards? You know, would you be lackadaisical on yourself? So it's definitely a double-edged sword.
It's crazy to think about too. Like, so, and I've thought about it before. It's like when I go to sit down with the homeowner and I'm going to sign a contract, and then I don't even bring up, the conversation just kind of leads to their people of faith, and they ask you the question, well, are you? I'm like, oh yeah, but then it's like, again, you put a target, at your head, because now you're admitting that you're trying to be a better person. So if you fail and if you don't meet those promises and expectations, people will judge you because you were a Christian. And I don't know why, but maybe it's just my point of view, but people tend to judge non-Christians less because I think they expect them to already fuck up, as opposed to a Christian. It's like, well, they're trying to be better. So if they mess up, like, I need to point it out. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it just seems that way. Like, there's a bigger target and there's more expectation for us because we're literally open about our faith. And so whenever we fail, I feel like people judge us tremendously because, or maybe not, I don't know. Maybe it's just,
I think we just judge ourselves.
We just judge ourselves that hard because we're so, we're trying really hard. We're not perfect. We're not, we're trying to figure things out. And I think this is a big thing that people, I think, struggle with. And again, it's just we need more leadership and all around in every area. So
absolutely. Yeah.
That's why I think we wanted to make it about this topic.
This topic. I mean, it's a good topic and it's a big thing. And if you're a person of faith, and you are listening to this, feel free, give us your insight and what you've done to, implement your faith and your opinions on it as well. Could be completely wrong. That's always possible.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any other questions that you want to, or things that you wanted to go over?
As far as the topic goes? Well, I mean, we have Bible verses and things like that we haven't really, again, that just go towards keeping, why it's important, and I think why God wants us to keep our faith in the workplace, and why it's so important too. But I think we narrowed down and we touched on a lot of like already why it is important and the shortcomings that come from not having it, and then also the hard factors that come from having it, but also the blessings of themselves.
No, there's
too,
many blessings.
Yeah.
So I guess we've talked a lot about negatives, about like the struggles of the mind and how the enemy will attack you mentally, and sometimes even physically, or sometimes with people around you, whatever it is. Like, what are some, I guess, positives that you can point out as far as like how faith has truly helped you excel?
There's, for me personally, like there's just no greater purpose. Like there's no greater purpose than to live and to do your work for God. And it kind of takes it takes the judgment of people off of you, and and then it's just you and God. And so I'd say that's where it's kind of that for whatever reason actually made it easier to be more outgoing and not worried about what people think, is because it's just between me and God as far as like my intentions, my motives, and all of those things. So that's one place that it has definitely helped me. And then also just the morals and the characteristics that come with it, and that striving to be better. There were many times where I probably could have, gotten away with a bunch of stuff, still ran the business well and everything, but my inside life outside of work was completely terrible. I could have come into work and acted like everything was fine and like held up that standard, but my everything outside of that could have been terrible and falling apart. But it was that relationship with God that it's like, you can't be living two separate lives. Like it's got to be the same with both. So I would say that those are, I mean, I think that they're positive because it keeps me, centered.
Yeah.
How about yourself?
As far as
like, where do you think that your faith has, what are positive aspects that you think have,
well, I think one of the biggest things is just allowing God to, take control, but also like the people that I surround myself with. Like I don't, and my wife knows that I don't allow just any people around me. Like I don't know why I've been very particular. Maybe I've been burned out, or maybe I'm just like, I wouldn't say judgmental, but like I think the people around me have something big that, it does help me a lot. Like when I know that, you read your Bible, that my wife every morning reads her Bible, that, our coworker Austin in the morning, always reads his Bible. It motivates me to want to pursue that relationship. And as far as how it helps me with business, I mean, it is absolutely like the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were to ask me whether I would choose this business or my relationship with God, I would 100%, even though it would hurt me here on earth, it would hurt me to lose the business. I know that he would have something for me. So I would 120% choose him over everything that I have now, because I know there's more to life than just money. Money comes and goes. Everything is so expensive nowadays. And if you're a business owner, you know that you are risking everything you have in order to have what you have. You're having faith, even though you may not believe in faith. You have faith in what you are building. So that, is something. And so it's everything, to answer your question in short.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I don't think I would ever change that.
Yeah.
I pray that I would never change.
Yeah. Do you think that us sharing our faith, like, inside the business, like, do you think that there would be any difference whether we did or did not? Like,
as far as like the success that we've had?
Yeah.
Like if we would have, I don't think our doors would be open. That's how much I believe that.
Yeah. If we didn't intertwine our faith life and our work life.
I don't think I don't think this would have happened, our friendship.
Yeah.
I think there was always a purpose behind it. I don't think a lot of things would have happened if it wouldn't have been for faith or for our faith. I can't pinpoint. I think I might have been off doing something else, truly. Yeah. Like I truly do believe that. I don't think that you and I would be friends.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have met my wife probably, even though it was before the business. It was around the time that the business happened. I don't think I would have left the former employer that we worked for. Maybe would have stayed, maybe would have, who knows? Who knows what could have happened? All I know is that, I don't think if we would have shied away from it, we would have built it to a certain point and then it would have crumbled.
Yeah.
Truly believe that.
Yeah.
And I've seen it in this industry, in the roofing industry. It is, if you're watching it and if you're in the roofing industry, know that, well, I guess a big thing in the roofing industry is drugs are very common. Alcohol is very common. Alcoholism in the roofing industry is by all times the highest.
Yeah.
I don't know why that's such a thing, but like if we look back on our life, drugs and alcohol was a big thing.
Yeah.
Within that organization. What did it lead to? I mean, I don't really care and I don't want to know. All I know is that God pulled us out. We allowed him to take lead. And it's just sad to see that there's so many people in the roofing industry hurting for purpose, I think.
Yeah.
And so many people are trying to find, I see hundreds of roofing owners and roofing companies starting podcasts, and they're all about roofing. It's like, how much roofing information can there really be? In my opinion, I'm like, how many people need to talk about the same shingle?
And how many people really, care and want to know? Most people just want a roof.
It's a roof. It's a site. It's siding. It is what it is. But like, that's why we wanted us to go a separate way.
Yeah.
Because we're not leading the ship. I am not the captain of my ship. I am riding this wave of, my faith, and he put the vision behind this whole thing, and it's to bring other people on to share their stories. And I think that's so much bigger than what what is out there. Again, I don't know. There's a lack of purpose within the industry, and there's a lack of, in my opinion, and maybe I could be wrong. Send me a message if you think I'm wrong, if you're, if you watch this, but I just really think that there's a lack of it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that that's one thing that faith has done for us, is like, it's broadened our horizons to like what this can create. Because I mean, I think if both me and you were honest, if this was neither one of our passion is construction and roofing, I think that it's greater than that. And I think it's to build something more than ourselves, than just like a construction company.
Yeah.
And I think if it was just that, like you said, we would have petered out a long time ago.
Yeah.
Because it can get very tedious. It's a heck ton of work for sometimes very little payout. And and I think it's that greater purpose that it keeps me going, at least. Yeah. And I know obviously you.
No, it keeps me going 100%. And I even talked to my wife yesterday about the topic when we were getting ready, and she just kind of asked if we had a guest or not. And I was like, no, I think there's a certain topic that was in the back of my head just reading the Bible this week. And it was just like the lack of leadership. And then what did I mention? The lack of leadership. And then why are business owners so scared to bring their faith into their business? I see it everywhere. Yeah. And especially in roofing, it's like roofing is such a self-centered industry that pays people well, and so people make dumb decisions to start buying Rolexes, start buying fancy cars, getting in debt and all kinds of things. And all I ever hear in the roofing industry is like, you never mix your faith with business, because you just don't. And then they talk about, Christians burn out people as much as anybody. Like, if you're a Christian, don't even say it, because like, if you're selling a deal and then you don't follow through on your word, and you said you were a Christian and you did it because you were a Christian, or you said you were going to do certain things because you were a Christian and then you didn't follow through, then why are you bringing in God into this? Well, it's like, it gives me a bigger reason to make sure that I do things right, because if I'm not doing it right, he's gonna definitely check me. Yeah. And people.
And I think that's a lack of faith. It's a lack of faith in him, because I think that a big problem, I think, with what you said is that, not with what you said, but with, roofers saying, keep them separate. Well, that's it. You're relying 100% on yourself then at that point, and you're not relying on God's hand to help you out with anything. Yeah. And that at that point, you're like, kind of like, it's my everything. I gotta make sure I get this stuff done perfectly. I gotta make sure that I contact everybody up on time perfectly. I gotta make sure it's like, and where it is your responsibility. But what I found is like, when you let God's hand move, he provides a tremendous amount of grace for things to move and flow to where they can happen the right way. Yeah. And so for roofers out there that don't do that, it's like, I think humility is the best and biggest thing that you can have as a business owner. Yeah.
No, I agree. Yeah. So I guess with that, like, what do you have a verse that you want to share that kind of, I guess the biggest thing about this episode is we want to make sure that people know that we're two roofers that decided to start a roofing company, did very well, and we wanted to start a podcast because we feel like we were called to do it. And then we're sharing what we believe because we're not afraid of people knowing that we're men of faith and that we believe in God and that we wouldn't be where we are because of him. And so, like, if you believe or you don't believe, that's fine. just know that, there's scripture that backs everything up, and there's faith that will help essentially with the struggles of business, because it is a very lonely, very, very lonely road. And if you don't have people next to you to help you, encourage you, and then you're feeding yourself media stuff, and then you're looking at the world around you and it's just chaos, and then bills are getting higher and all these things are happening, there is hope, and there is someone who is for you, even if you don't believe. So I guess if there's something you want to share.
Yeah. The verses that I mainly, that I picked out pertain to work. Proverbs 14:23, all hard work brings a profit, but mere talk leads only to poverty.
I've heard of that one before.
That got me to stop lying.
Why is that?
Well, just because, you can, so many times, and a lot of times, like I would, talk up a big storm, tell people this is what I was going to do and all of that. And obviously I would never follow through on it. And I think that that's just a real statement in life. If you don't put in the work, you're not going to reap any reward or benefit. You can't just expect, life to take, to provide for you. You can't just, expect life and people to provide for you, or God even to provide for you. He called us to work. And so, talking a lot without any results is, usually the sign of a liar. So, yeah.
No, I agree. It's very common in the world. And so
don't be one.
Don't be one. And as a business owner, like, you can't get discouraged if people aren't of that character, of not lying. Like, I think the world has become very lazy as well. Like, there's so many. Sorry, I'm pointing out all the bad in the world and all this stuff. But
supposed to be inspired.
I know, but the world is lacking of many things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And these are things that I just noticed within, people that I've met before and people that I see around. It just seems like there's so much confusion out there. And I just hope that we can bring a little bit of hope to people. And if people watch this, I hope it inspires someone to seek not validation from others, but validation from the word. It takes you 2 seconds to literally Google something from the Bible that can lift you up, and it just build on that. And
for anybody that doesn't believe, I've always thought, like, George Janko, he said this, with Andrew Tate, because I think Andrew Tate is a Muslim, and he said, he's like, I'm not a big believer in debating out religions and debating why my religion is better than yours. Like, let's put each God up against each other, and the one that wins, that's the true God. And so I've always told people, it's like, go read your Bible, like, see what happens. Because I grew up in a Christian home, but I didn't truly believe until I actually got into the word myself. And I decided, it's like, I'm not going to take the opinion of anybody else. I just, like, God, you tell me. And I opened up my Bible and I started reading, and that's when my life changed. And so anybody out there, like, just read it. It's an incredible book.
And so I guess with that, there's one more part to that one article that we read a few seconds ago. Where is it? Okay. Maybe. So you read up to this seems to be simultaneous Satan. So there's 3 things that you can do to essentially, help these things. And I guess we'll post those questions in the description. But I guess the topic is pretty straightforward. And again, we just hope that we could have encouraged someone. We are very open about our faith. So if you're not into faith stuff, you don't have to watch this. Bye. But other than that, I think there's a lot of very good tips as far as like how to become a little, mentally strong. And if you're a man or a woman in leadership positions, I think there's a lot of wisdom that can be brought from the people around you. So learn to listen and learn when to speak, and then allow God to speak to you, because that's the main source. That's my personal.
Don't trust human wisdom. Trust God's.
So, but with that, do you have anything else you want to share?
No, I think that Good.
Sweet. Well, guys, we wanted to share this episode. As far again, it's something that was just heavy on our hearts. So I hope if there's anybody that gets a little bit or something from it, just know that this is what we've gone through, what we've experienced, what we see, and we're just again 2 roofers just recording these podcasts, bringing people on. So next week we're gonna have another guest. On the podcast, and I'm excited to share who it is. And then stay tuned for that. But other than that, if you have questions or you need, I guess, prayer or anything like that, you can reach out to either one of us. We'd be happy to, pray for you. And I hope it lands in someone's lap. I know one of our episodes, I think the second episode or the third one with Robin, somebody reached out to us and said, that their dad was going through some serious alcoholism problems, and that's what it's about. That it encouraged him to keep going, and it was just really cool. So hopefully, even if it touches one person, that's all that matters for us. We don't care about anything else, but the purpose behind it. But other than that, I think we're gonna be signing off, and we'll see you guys on episode number 6.
Well, this is 6. We'll see you on episode 7.
7. See you guys on episode 7. Have a great one, and we'll catch you guys next week. Yeah.